Hi Lauren, how are you?
Hi Richard, I'm good, thank you.
Good to see you. So I'm Richard, I'm the development manager here, and I thought it'd be useful to meet up to give you some feedback on your personality profile that you completed recently. So we've got 30 minutes to discuss that today. If there's anything we need to discuss after that, we can make another arrangement perhaps to have a chat. Just a few housekeeping points to start us off. Everything will be confidential that we discuss between us today. I will be making some notes, but that's purely because I'll be producing a development report for you after our meeting today, and it's just to make sure that I capture all of the thoughts and all of the comments that you make, so that I can make sure that the report is accurate for you. We've sort of met briefly before, but it'd be useful just to get a little bit about your background really, and what your current role is.
Okay, currently I'm a junior HR advisor.
Oh yes.
And I've only been in the position for about 6 months. I've recently graduated.
Quite new then to your role.
Quite new, yeah.
And your first job since graduating?
Yes,
as well.
it is.
Good, okay, thanks. That's useful just to get that as a bit of context. Useful also to check your expectation really. What would you like to get out of our session today?
Nothing in particular. I'm interested really to see how I sort of came out based on the questions that we had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm open really. I'm interested to see if I've got any development points maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So try to capture as much learning as we can perhaps as we go through. Yeah, great.
Good.
Okay, and how did you find the questionnaire?
Yeah, it was interesting, but it was quite long. I found it was quite a long.
Takes a little while to fill in. It measures quite a lot of different areas of personality, so as you'll see in a minute. So it does take a little while to do it accurately. And do you think there's anything that might have affected your responses to the questionnaire? Anything that might be happening in your life at the moment, or when you filled in the questionnaire?
Nothing that I can think of. Nothing springs to mind.
Okay, useful just to check really. Okay, well, a few points to mention about the questionnaire. It is what we call a self-report questionnaire, so it's about how you see yourself. It's certainly not infallible, so it's not the expert on you. Okay, you're the expert on you. The purpose of our discussion today is just to show you how your responses have come out on the profile. One really important point to stress is that it's not about good or bad. Okay, so it's not the case that you have good or bad personality. Everyone's entitled to their own approach. It's very much about your style and your preferences at work. So I've got a blank profile here just to describe to you the sorts of things that are being measured, and then we'll look at your profile in a second. But it's got three broad areas of these clusters of traits, personality traits as we call them. The first area is the interpersonal area, so it's stuff to do with people. Your preferences around forwarding self and focusing on others. This area called cognitive, which is about how you prefer to use information or how you might prefer to approach tasks. The internal area, which is some of the drivers and motivators, and also perhaps some of the more emotional preferences. And then we also have these style scales, which are about how you might have approached the questionnaire or other aspects of your personality. What we do with your responses is we compare you against the rest of the working population, and that's how your personality is measured, if you like. And where your preferences might fall in a middle band, these numbers 5 or 6, you see that's the grey column there. That's really average for the working population. So you see yourself in pretty much the same way as the typical person in the working population. Where things might come out a little bit more towards the left or a little bit more towards the right, these are areas that are more sort of special to yourself. Just before we look at your profile, might be useful just to get your view first of all really. Perhaps if we have a look at this area around forwarding self, how do you feel about forwarding yourself at work?
I suppose if I had a preference, I'm better at forwarding myself on a one-to-one situation with my manager or my colleagues rather than in a group. I can be quite quiet maybe when I'm in a group, don't really say very much. So maybe I'm better at forwarding myself when it's just me and somebody else, I suppose. Oh right, okay. Well, thanks for that, Lauren. Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think that has come out in some of your preferences in the responses here. Perhaps around this area of direct, which your preferences have come out more towards the left here. Suggesting a less direct style. Would that tend to be more in the group situation? Yes, I think
what you've
so.
just said.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be more when I'm in the groups, not one-to-one.
Okay. How do you think that might be seen as a strength, actually, in your approach?
I suppose I can be seen as more diplomatic, I suppose, and maybe more sensitive to people, so I'm not just causing arguments and confronting people. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, no, I would imagine that given your role, that's probably quite a key strength to have.
Yeah.
In HR. The influence here you can see is within a typical band for the working population. So perhaps move on to this one if that's okay, which is the open preference here towards the right hand side. How does that come across, do you think?
Yeah, again, I think it is more than a one-to-one. I am an open person, really, and people tend to know what I'm thinking, really. But again, maybe not as much in the group situations.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, you know, what you say there, because it does draw in some of these preferences, perhaps, I wonder, in the focus on others area, where you've got quite a clear preference for a lot of these scales over towards the right-hand side, this area of consultative. So valuing others' opinions and views. The psychological, which is about being interested in other people, and the empathy, which is, as you were saying, perhaps being more sensitive to other people's feelings. Are there any ways, do you think, that you may want to develop in this area that you've discussed that would be useful?
I think so. I think I could come across as really quiet and really shy sometimes, especially in that meeting situation when it's a group of us.
Yes.
So I think that's probably something I can develop.
Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah. Okay. Good. So we discussed, strengths and areas that you might want to think about in the development plan there. Let's have a look at some of the other scales. Over towards the right hand on this one. So that's the whole profile. Any questions at all?
No, I don't think so, actually. It's been really useful.
Good. Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. Just by way of summary, what would be the key points that you'd take from this?
Probably that I do have some key strengths that I have to be aware of and not to lose confidence in myself, really. And it's also useful, we discussed some areas around my discussion in groups and how I can sort of interact with people in groups more. Good.
Okay. Well, if there are any questions, Lauren, you've got my contact details, so do give me a shout. But otherwise, thanks very much.
Thank you. That's been great.